I think Afterlife fits perfectly. It's got one leg in City of Evil and one leg in the White Album.
I think it just captures everything from that era very well.
It's a Wheatley, goddammit. That riff is the product of a drummer trying to come up with a riff and then having guitar players transcribe it.
We just went in there and had fun.
What are you doing? We're trying to write hits.
Attraction. Who is the crowd? Happens to the cage as we perform here upon the stage.
Nobody.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to TRAX. This is the official Avenged Sevenfold podcast, the show that's taking you through the band's entire back catalogue, one track at a time. I am your host, Bees, and there's going to be no rambling intro. We are getting straight into the beating heart of Afterlife. The self-titled album was the first time that the band had taken over production credits for a full-length release, and this was also a real period of coming-of-age songwriting from Jimmy the Rev Sullivan. We discuss his influence on the song, while being under the influence, I might add. During a special trip to the mountains, there's much talk of Wheatleys, but we start with how the band felt about the song ahead of the release of the self-titled album. And the first single was
Come back to me, it's almost easy. Come back again, it's almost easy.
Yep, almost easy. But the band, however, wanted to take you all with them into the afterlife.
Afterlife had the dueling guitars, it had the big chorus, had all these things. And yeah, and Tom Wally, who ran the label at the time, he was nothing but great to us. And this came down to an opinion of his that seemed to sway things in a different direction. And that opinion, we were playing the record for them at first. And at the time we were doing a Halloween EP that we wanted to do something like AFI had done with their Halloween EP. And I think it was A Little Piece of Heaven and Dancing Dead were on that. And maybe like Crossroads was going to be on that. But I guess we're trying to do the spookier songs or whatever. So we're playing them this record. And so we're thinking, okay, like we're going to play Afterlife. And it's the no-brainer lead single, what you start with on the record. And I remember playing it for him. I don't remember at what order we played it for him, but I remember playing it for him. And everyone in there, I remember it was like, there's the radio department, Rob Goldklang and Heather Luke and Grover and Tom and Craig Aronson. Everyone was in there and they all really enjoyed that song. And I remember Tom Wally turning around going, "Oh, it sounds a little Warped Tour-ish." Like not as a compliment, like sort of like, I guess saying like it's poppy. It's like a little poppy, a little cheesy. And as soon as he said that, it just seemed everybody at the label got off it, right? It was like, oh yeah, like a little Warped Tour-ish, like little poppy, a little sugary.
He heard the melody, he just didn't think it was the right song. And it kind of threw us all back a bit, to be honest, because we thought, it was at that time there was the Mike Hems of the world and there were these big, Helena choruses that were blowing up. And we thought we have our own super melodic Avenged Sevenfold song that's true to ourselves. And we thought that the label would appreciate that. And they didn't. And looking back on it, I mean, I don't think we've ever made a wrong decision, but it's one of those things where you have to trust your intuition, which is what we do now. When we have a song, there's not even a discussion, or if there is with the label or management, it's the world's shortest discussion because we know exactly what we're putting out because we know our fans better. And at that time, we were a little bit more influential when it came to what song was going on the radio. MTV was big at the time, and the K-Rocks of the world were playing bands like us. So it was more of you really don't want to make a misstep this early in your career. And so you're a little more influential. And now that we're older, it's like we have always been right about our intuition. It would have been fun to see what would have happened had we stayed the course and, maybe just trusted ourselves.
If the goal is promoting something, then I think you need to make prudent decisions based on that. It's not like it involved band time and we had to show up at these places and do different types of press that we weren't into. It's just like somebody's going to fucking plug the song into this ecosystem and it could gain a lot of fans. And I thought Afterlife had the best potential to do that. Almost easy as a single to release when you're trying to keep your edge and you're trying to show the world this is who we are. But, for our fans, they're going to get the entire record. And that's the whole point. That's why we spend the years doing these things. And I thought I think we all felt like Afterlife had bigger potential across a myriad of genres.
I don't belong here, we gotta move on here. Escape from this afterlife, 'cause this time I'm right to move on and on, far away from here.
It's easy to see why. Even having lived with the album since its 2007 release, that chorus is such a standout moment, not only on this record, but it's a standout moment in this band's legacy. The word I always think of when it comes to this chorus is undeniable. You put the chorus to Afterlife in literally any era of hard rock and metal history, and it would remain undeniable. In fact, we asked Johnny Christ about the first time he heard the song and that chorus, and here's what he had to say.
I can remember vividly the first time Jimmy played that chorus for me. I was actually at Val and Michelle's parents' house in the harbor, where Brian was living and Matt at times. And there was a keyboard in one of the rooms, and Jimmy just started, it was in the middle of the day, and like Jimmy just started like playing the chords, and then like he's like, "What do you think of this?" And I think maybe even Zachy was there. Don't quote me on that. It was a while ago. And he was like just like feeling us out. Like I think he'd probably already showed Matt and Brian, but it was the first time I had heard it, and I remember he's playing it on the keyboard and like kind of mumbling the melody, like singing it, but kind of mumbling it too. And I was just like, "Oh, that's good. Like that's really good." Like, I was like, "Holy shit. Is this for us?"
Got nothing against you, and surely I'll miss you. This place full of peace and light, and I hope tonight take me back inside when the time is right.
The reason why I like it is, for me, it doesn't go overboard on the catchiness. It's just something that like you hear and you go like, "Damn, that's a really good melody." Like that's what it is to me. We like good catchy melodies, but sometimes like there's been some in the past that any member has brought and been like, "Oh, it's a little too cute, it's a little too sugary. We need to mellow that out a little bit." But this one was not that.
I think it is sugary. I think when we were first writing, and you got to think it's our fourth record in, but at the same time, we would really gear towards big hooks, right? Like I would say the chorus in Afterlife is sort of like the chorus in like Nightmare, like where they're sugary. They're like sing-along bops, and then there's a melodic undertone to it that could be a pop song. You could take that and refurbish it into, I don't belong here, gotta move on, dear. It's just so poppy.
I wouldn't disagree. It's just, to me, there's depth. So I won't name other pop artists, but to me, like Britney Spears is depthy. Like that gives me goosebumps. That doesn't make me allergic to pop. It brings me in and wants me to be a better songwriter. And it's poppy. I get it, but it's dark. It's brooding. It's the lyrical content is very, very serious. It's very thoughtful. It's not just it actually kind of meanders a little bit, almost to the point where it's too much, and then it brings you back in. It's a very, very clever, very brilliant melody. But yeah, it's very, very pop pleasing to the ear, but to me, it's got all the depth, and the different colors that make it not too sugary.
It was 100% in the right direction for the song. And I would have put up any kind of battle that I could to make sure that it made its way onto the album, because I loved it. And I've never been scared of being melodic. I don't feel the need to be heavy and tough. You just, every song lends itself to what it needs to become. And I don't really think of that chorus as super pop. I think of it as super just beautiful, and it makes you feel a certain way, and it brings you into this different realm of melody and just kind of encompasses you. So for me, it wasn't like we were throwing in the super pop chorus. I felt like Beast and the Harlot had like a super pop chorus that kind of was never my favorite thing. But with Afterlife, it was the first song that we had written for the self-titled album. I was very, very excited, because before that, there's a lot of ideas getting thrown around, and I was getting kind of nervous, to be honest, for the first time in our career, because we're a heavy band, and, we had melodic elements in songs like Unholy and more screaming, but the stuff we were coming up with was more like rockin'. There's some weird shit going on, and I was kind of in a panic mode. And then all of a sudden this song kind of put me back down in a comfortable spot. And I'm glad it did, because I was kind of worried for a while.
I don't think something like that would make it today in Avenged Sevenfold, but I'm grateful for at that time and place, we were focusing on writing poppier, more melodic elements. You hear it in Second Heartbeat. You hear it in like Unbound and Lost. It's just a mindset, right? Like either you're cool with that and you're like totally, I just think the mindset in this band has changed a little bit. And I think that goes to a lot of people. Like when people say, oh, I like old Avenged, like these 4 records, which are all vastly different. What they're really saying is the melodic choices are a much more dark, and we would call it serious, but serious seems derogatory towards pop. It's just a different type of melody that we're going for now. And that's really the shift that they're hearing, where we're trying to stay away from something that just sounds like you got powdered sugar all over it. Like, you know what I'm saying? So I think Afterlife is a prime example of, and that's what Tom was picking up on, right? And then there's a bunch of bands that do it, and it was really big for a while there. There's emo and pop punk that exploded during that time. And this kind of lived in that world because of the melodic choices we made. Not to say it's bad or good. It's just to say that's not the prerogative at this point.
I see a distant light, but girl, this can't be right. Such a surreal place to see. So how did this come to be? Arrived to Wally.
I think perhaps my favourite thing about TRAX is when we can take you into real magic moments in the band's history, where the guys' personalities and the music that we love smash into one another like your mum and dad when you're out for the night. Get your popcorn and strap in, because while we may have discussed the chorus of Afterlife and how it's the size of a Titan's leg, the verse to this song, it's fucking weird, right?
Place of open open, perfect skies and no rain. Can't beat this place, but we're free, 'cause we've been waiting for you.
Here's Sin on how the songwriting trip of a lifetime and a shit-faced drummer whose drinking skills are only outstripped by his songwriting chops resulted in the verse that we all know and love.
Matt would drag us to his fucking cabin. And some of us liked it. Me, I struggle with the writing cycle. We all have our own things, right? Matt needs a break. At that time, we're, in our third record, fourth for them, third record for me, writing at his mom's house. And to me, when she's coming out with milk and cookies and water, it's like, "Ma, what are you doing? We're trying to write hits." And and this is after we're like #1 on TRL, City of Evil has been out, and we're still writing in his mom's fucking garage. It's amazing, to be honest. And they're the most incredible parents. So supportive. To give him absolute, actual real estate, big real estate to write and even rehearse. It's big enough to rehearse and stuff at their house is beyond generous. Anyway, so for me, it's amazing. It's right around the block, and we just go there and we grind, and we just fucking hit factory, baby. And after, a couple of months of it, he gets fucking stir crazy. They have this beautiful cabin in Big Bear. It's 2.5 hours away. It's not like it's that crazy of a distance, but I like to finish my work and then go drink with my wife. This was way pre-kids, few years into our relationship, and my wife and I are still inseparable. We're always fighting to get rid of the kids so we can go on date nights and stuff. And we do love our kids, but we're best friends, and it was fresh into the relationship, and I didn't want to go do something that was difficult for me anyway. Writing is always challenging. I don't sleep well. I don't really enjoy it until the end and it starts to come together. It's very tough for me. It's not a natural process for me. So we go to Big Bear, and I'm a bump on the log, and Matt's just trying to get everybody into it. He's loving it up there. And a lot of the guys don't kind of care. They're whatever about it. But Jimmy loves it, because he wants to hang with the boys and fucking drink at night. And good God, did we drink a ton every night. But that made it worse the next day. I'd be brutally hungover, and then time to fucking go to work. And the thing is, we all have access to each other. So if people have questions, I'm right there, fucking, how do I do this with this chord? It's it's nonstop. There are no parameters and no nothing. So there's a few days in. Even Jimmy at this point is a little worse for the wear. We're all worn out. I'm on one couch, just fucking dead, lethargic. He's on the other couch. And of course, Matt is, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and he wants to get into this song. And to Matt's credit, because I've been kind of poking fun at him, he championed, this was Jimmy's first full integration and stuff, where he's writing his own songs. Matt absolutely championed that beyond, well beyond anybody else. I feel like I championed it before, come write with us, Jimmy. Come write, do this thing. You're the greatest songwriter on the planet. You're my favorite songwriter. You should be doing vocals and stuff. And no, I don't know how to write for it. So he did it. And then once he did, Matt was like, "Oh my God, these songs are just give our album so much depth. I didn't even know that he could write these types of pop rock sort of tunes." And then it was our job to kind of make it a little bit more adventurous. So yeah, he had struggled with the verse. He was like, I want these Wheatleys, and this was back at home. I want these Wheatleys. I'm like, what the fuck are Wheatleys? You got this song. It's brilliant. Yes, that's it. I was fully fucking joking around, and we okay, Wheatleys. And then, we're all trying to fuck with melodies. And usually he writes everything. And this one just had some holes in it. I think the bridge a little bit, the solo section, and the verse. He knew he wanted the Wheatleys, so I fucking shat out some Wheatleys, and he fucking loved it. It was pretty funny. And now it's like, what do we do? And so Matt and I are like, thinking maybe a little bit too traditionally. I won't put that on Matt. I forget exactly what he was singing. I know I was kind of in the traditional vein. So, I mean, we're just sitting there. I'm done. I'm fucking tired. I can't think of anything. I just want Jimmy to write this fucking thing. I just want to go home. And he's like, I know what to do with this. And he's just like, imagine this guy. And he's just like laying on this couch, fucking dead, hungover for the third day in a row. And he's just starts singing this amazing story about a guy on a couch that, is engulfed in flames. His house is engulfed in flames and he can't fucking do anything about it. And he just starts singing, what's the deal with this fire? Put it out. I'm too tired. And it's just, Matt and I are fucking cracking up. And again, to Matt's credit, he's like, that's it. We're doing that. And I'm like mortified. Like, I just heard, what's the deal with this fire? Put it out. I'm too tired. I don't know what you heard, Matt, but that's what I heard. I don't know about that. And then Matt's like, and it like hit. I'm like, holy shit.
Like walking into a dream, so unlike what you've seen, so unsure but it seems like we've been waiting for you. Falling into this place, just giving you a small taste of your afterlife here, so stay, you'll be back as soon anyway.
I mean, I just remember us sitting there and it was a joke. Yeah, like Jimmy was we were just messing around and like we just thought it was so funny. And then everything we'd work on that was serious just wasn't as cool. And so then it was like, okay, well, we're going to do that, I guess. And then, I mean, if you think about it, there's like three major parts. Na 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 na, and then there's na 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 na. And that's kind of like, I don't know, it's very like uplifting and cool. Then the chorus is just sugar pop. And then the joke of the verse really is a counterweight to the poppiness of that chorus. And again, it's moments like this in our career that we've learned from, where sometimes those silly things that pop into your head are the best thing. Because I don't know how else you get to that. Like, it's almost like you have to be throwing out a joke to get to that, because no one's going to come and like, can you imagine like being like in a Nashville like writers group and you roll in and you're just like, you got your acoustic guitar and you're like, what's the deal with that band? Like, it just like, you just never would. And so that's where I think we can differentiate ourselves, as being allowing ourselves to have those moments and just leave them.
It was a special place, and whether we were amped on coffee or actually drunk or hungover as a byproduct from being really drunk the night before, all of those different vibes engendered some pretty incredible music and really brought out some stuff. But the Afterlife verse was certainly the funniest fucking thing, and how it manifested from just guys that were barely able to fucking stand into one of the coolest, most unique verses on that and melodies on that record.
Sorry, not sorry, had to get as much juice as possible out of that particular story. And while, as promised, we'll be talking about Wheatleys again later on, I wanted to ask Zaki about the riff in the verse and how it came to be. And when doing so, it actually led down a rabbit hole discussing Jimmy's brilliance and his rising prominence as a songwriter within the band.
That riff is the product of a drummer trying to come up with a riff and then having guitar players transcribe it. It was like Jimmy like trying to get his point across by like slap bassing the guitar and like not really playing a riff, and then kind of leaving it up to us to figure out how to actually turn these into notes. And Sin picked out these notes that actually made sense and were able to be played fast. And it was kind of more like a rhythmic idea that Jimmy had, to the best of my recollection. But that's what happens when you let a drummer write a riff with minimal guitar experience. It's kind of more like just like banging on a piano, hoping that we can, understand what he's doing. And we did. And that's one of my favorite riffs. Like that's such a cool, unique riff. And it's so big and heavy and stompy. And you can tell it was written by a drummer.
As you well know, we don't do things in a linear fashion on TRAX, but let's go back to the very start of this song. Afterlife opens with sweeping, stirring strings that beckon you into the song. So here's Sin with how that came to be.
We're always kind of, you aim to take, like a quartet and then make it our own. Because a quartet, what do you do with the violin? Well, I like the nasaliness of a viola, which is more mid-range, but I want it to be a viola, or I want there to be 2 or 3 cellos, because it's the weightier strings. They just all have their own timbre, I guess is maybe the right word, but tones and timbre. And this was all Jimmy. He just had kind of a rogue quartet-ish sort of thing that we bastardized in the writing process, and it translated those unique arrangements of stringed instruments, this cello being the star, translated to real instruments in the studio that mirrored what we thought we needed to change about a quartet in the writing process. It actually translated perfectly, which I've always been proud of. We don't think, we need a string quartet and let somebody go do it. We're very picky about the orchestration, the arrangement of it, and how the different instruments speak. And we prefer to have them speak in a more unique way, but it's natural, So I don't know. I think he crushed that part, and then it integrates into the bridge, or reintegrates into the song very nicely. So it's not like you just have this random intro, which we're very guilty of at times on different songs. It's very much necessary and a part of this song. And Jimmy really just had a masterful perception of the entire song from the beginning.
This was our first embarkation of doing the producing of an album ourselves. We had a couple of great engineers. We had Fred still working with us, who worked with us on City and Waking the Fallen. And I think maybe just because of the fearlessness that we had going into it, I mean, we're coming off of our first real huge success off of City of Evil, our first platinum record. And that's when we go to the label and say, we're going to produce this next one ourselves. And for a lot of times, especially given the time, we're all very young, we're in our early 20s, for them to have that kind of confidence, go like, can they really do this? And then we just went in there and had fun. I mean, this was the first time of our career, I feel like, where we really started to experiment through the studio space. I mean, in the entire record, we sat up in Burbank, this giant fucking place. I mean, doing songs like Little Piece of Heaven, where we're smashing bottles in the corner, that was real. Like the laughter from Jimmy in this song and Afterlife at the end of the solo, at the end of the bridge, before we go into that final chorus, is just him and Matt laughing over and over. what we were doing in the studio, I feel like translated to the fans for whatever reason. I think that they saw that we were going to do things differently from then on. Like we can't, as I said, we came off the success of City of Evil and we didn't make another city. We went in and made something completely different. And we're like, and as I said, self-produced it and just had fun with it.
And so we move to the music video for Afterlife. While the guys haven't been in their last bunch of videos, which we've done entire episodes on the video to Nobody, and Zoe Katz joined us at the end of the Mattel episode if you want to know why that's the case. This particular performance-based video had a tarantula, some doves, and what may or may not have been a dead girlfriend. Here's the explanation.
We filmed that in like mid tour. Like we came in for like a day and I just remember like I'd seen the treatment and I was like, he's gonna release doves. And I was like, all right, how are we gonna do that? I've never held a bird really before. I was like, I don't know. But they got like animal handlers there and they're like, hey, this is how you do it. And we filmed it a couple of times, but it was cool. I mean, I remember feeling a little uncomfortable about it, to be honest, because I was just like, is this cheese? It goes back. Is this too sugary? Is this cheesy? Like, why am I releasing these doves? Like, why am I the one releasing the doves? But then we all had different ones. And, you know, Jimmy had his tarantula on his face, same handlers dealing with that too. And, yeah, I remember the first few times I just laugh like as I do it. It's just like, because it seems kind of silly. Like in post, it looks a lot cooler than when you're just like sitting there like on, you know, holding a bird and you just go like, oh, you know, like I just kept trying to think. I couldn't help but think of when doves cry. All I could think about was Prince the whole time. And it made me laugh. I don't know. But it was a different video too. I mean, this was also a time when we were really focused on everyone having their vignettes. We were working with Wayne Isham again on this one. And, you know, he always loved working with Wayne. I mean, that was a great heyday for music videos. I think we got like the last run of it where you can make real concept videos. I know that people are still doing it, but I guess to that extent that 360 flip around camera that went over us as we're performing and stuff, and having the vignettes and having an entire day shoot and weeks after of post and stuff. I just don't know that really exists as much as it did at the time. So really fortunate again to be able to do that. And I remember laughing when Brian would put out his hand a couple of times. Like we called him the Silver Surfer. If you look in the video a couple of times, he puts his hand out like sideways, and we're like, oh, that's a Silver Surfer move right there.
We showed up to the shoot in our tour bus, and none of us would get off the bus. I don't know if we were tired, we were hungover, we were whatever. We didn't want to get off the bus. But we had, you know, written this idea for the video, as we do for everything video-wise. And there's a scene that I wanted to kind of be dancing, because at that time I was wearing bow ties and I wanted to fucking put on a tuxedo and dance in a, you know, that's what I like. I like that Frank Sinatra shit. And when we got there, I wasn't thrilled with the person that they had hired for me to dance with. So I was like boycotting. I was like, I don't want to be in the video with this person. And it was just because I'm particular, you know. And I was like, I had a beautiful girlfriend at the time. And I was like, I want to dance in the scene with my girlfriend, you know. That was the last scene that we filmed that ended up being filmed about a full 24 hours after the shoot started. So I had to stay up for like 24 hours. And then we filmed that scene. Everyone else was already asleep on the bus, getting ready to drive to the next city. And I had been up for like 24 hours to film that scene. And a lot of fans, I think, started catching on that in the Nightmare video, there's a scene of me dancing with a skeleton in a straitjacket, basically tying back into the Afterlife video. And that's kind of like a little bit of an Easter egg that I'm not sure if people caught on to or not. But it was like, you know, Afterlife, you know, you're in this dream scenario with a beautiful girl dancing in a bow tie and a beautiful dress. And then in the Nightmare video, it's like, it's all gone to hell because you're living in a nightmare. So it's kind of a cool story. But that video is fun. You can tell, you know, during the performance shots, you can tell that me and Sin Gates are progressively getting drunker and drunker if you watch that video, because we start getting kind of like cross-eyed and kind of like goofy as we're like rocking out. But you know, that's for fans to take a closer look at.
Afterlife is a song that will be played on American rock radio until there are only cockroaches walking the earth. It is a song that at festivals, all of the casuals, the people that aren't there for our band, they still know every single word to this song. On the current Life is But a Dream touring cycle, not everyone will know the two new songs that open the set, but when you need a song to bring everyone into the room and get them lost in the moment, you call upon Afterlife. So, what makes Afterlife such a special moment?
That's a tough question because I have my reasons, but I think at the end of the day, what it really comes from is the fans. They chose that song as a fan favorite. You know, we've been playing it for a lot of years. I love playing that song live. It has so many different, it does have a lot of different vibes. It goes a few different places. And live, I'm especially like with a lot of the da-da-da-da-da-dum. It just feels epic live for whatever reason. And I think that, and it has a lot of energy. So I think it just captures everything from that era very well. It's got the duels. It's got the poppy chorus that we covered. It's got the very different sounding 3-part verse, the elongated chorus. And of course, Zach, as I said, Zach and Brian doing great duels. And then Brian's solo on it is just ridiculous.
It's a very serious moment for us and could be the most serious moment on the record. I don't think even Dear God gets us. It's like floating up above, and there's these songs that are kind of floating. Almost Easy touches on it a little bit. Critical Acclaim, it's got serious moments, but the entirety of Afterlife is very serious, yet the juxtaposition of those melodies and how they kind of came up and the almost too sugary chorus and the what's the deal with this fire verse. And then it's like got the most serious, dark blue, purple tones to me across the board. All these different types of chaos, from sugary pop chaos to joke lethargy, hungover, drunk-induced chaos to wild solos and intensity in the studio, and it just congeals into this really weighty and beautiful masterpiece of a song.
There's certain elements of City of Evil that don't carry a lot of weight, and this is me speaking on like when I think of like terms to describe it. It's like hyperspeed. The mix is thin purposely because it's so fast and there's so much going on. And then I think there's a weightiness to the White Album and a sluggishness of some things that I think both are great, cool records. But there's like, on one end, you have like this thin sort of hyperspeed thing, and another, you have this weightiness. I think Afterlife fits perfectly in between those two. Like it's got one leg in City of Evil and one leg in the White Album. And I think there's something about the energy and the back and forth. There's a traditional metal element, but it's wrapped in this really colorful wrapping paper. So I think it just really works. And I think that has translated to people in a way that can kind of transcend both those records and kind of be the one thing that kind of connects those records, which are two records that people hold in high regard in our fan base. So to me, that's probably why it works really well. I don't think there's many songs that do that for us in a way where, because we kind of cut the cord on the record before and move on. Afterlife seems like one of those things where it can bring along everyone from the old record and everybody in the new record's totally cool with it.
Okay, so as promised, music theory with Sin, and seeing as this is the portion of the show where we discuss the more technical aspects of the playing and the songwriting on Afterlife, and seeing as we've just generally accepted the word Weedley as if it's an actual word when it very, very much isn't, Mr. Sinister Gates, what in the ever-loving fuck is a Weedley, goddammit?
What's a Weedley, goddammit? A Weedley. Well, for Jimmy, his was a wheelie. It was dilly. He liked, well, I got a fucking guitar here. So this is going to sound like shit on a podcast, but Weedley. That's kind of like, I think it's a diminished, I think it's got a diminished scale vibe to it, which is a symmetrical scale. It goes up in minor thirds in perpetuity. And so, and that's what a symmetrical scale means. It means it doesn't have a whole step, then a half step. It's all the same intervals, each different ascension or whatever. So yeah, it was a kind of just a phoned in sort of thing. I'm not gonna lie. I kind of knew it was a diminished scale, and I just kind of went for this dark and evil thing. I thought at the time it was a little on the cheesy end, but he loved it, and you just trust Jimmy. And then coupled with the melody, it just makes it work, you know? I won't sit here today and be super pessimistic. Old man Gates, you know, yells at the clouds. This is progress. We're getting better. This is something I like, actually. Yeah. So it starts off a little cringe to me, you know, because I like to rework stuff. You know, I like to get it to where I love shit, and Jimmy didn't have the patience. Matt also didn't have the patience. He loved it, or either loved that Jimmy loved it, which either is very possible. But you know, if we're going to and it's going to be that, I mean, to me, it's a little generic. But again, with the melody that came across, which is not diminished, which is almost atonal with that drop. That's very much a vibe and a rhythmic approach as opposed to a melodic approach.
It feels so simplistic on the surface level compared to other Avenged Sevenfold compositions, certainly with today's Avenged back catalogue, but it feels like a song fueled by drama more than technicality. The strings make it dramatic from its very beginning, but it's still tough. How did you find that blend for making it all work cohesively?
If I knew, I would have done it fucking 20 more times. You know, I wish I could say, you know, it did springboard a different philosophy. We knew we could get a little bit more serious, and we knew we could write deeper stuff. The next album after Jimmy passed, I think we were writing more serious songs rather than City of Evil, which is just taking bombastic punk rock stuff and big harmonies everywhere and big guitar harmonies everywhere. I think we wanted to deepen the songwriting for Self-Titled, which it is deeper. There's some darker moments, but we were more focused on expanding into, you know, our more outlandish influences, you know, bringing a lot of hip hop, involving a lot of hip hop. That was the first time we really involved a lot of hip hop influences. But when you're listening back and you have songs like Almost Easy, Afterlife, even Gunslinger a little bit, although the guitar is a touch novelty. I'm not allergic to it. That's what it was intended to do, but almost like being less novelty, moving forward at times. And basically what that means to me is like finding our own voice, which, not to plug the new record, but that's to me, and I know I'm in the middle of it, but that's finding our new voice. Even the stage, I feel like, was finding really our voice. And I felt like this was the beginning of finding our own voice. But I do think that we regressed after and went kind of more traditional when we could have there was a fork in the road. Are we going to be the next Beatles, or are we going to be the next Metallica? And I do think that we made a concerted effort. I don't think we were naming those bands at the time, but we definitely went more in the Metallica route, which, when we were writing kind of the stuff, it wasn't as pleasing to me, but it was pretty incredible to see Matt and Jimmy on Nightmare working and writing some brilliant stuff. Maybe, like I said, not in the vein or the eclectic natures like Self-Titled, but Nightmare is an unbelievable record, and Jimmy and Matt had a lot to do with that, which is great, So each album had their own dynamic. I feel like Self-Titled was more of a me and Jimmy project, Nightmare more of a Matt and Jimmy project, and then you have Awaken the Fallen, which is a lot of Zachy and stuff. So different relationships on each record, which is, we're very, very lucky to have that. And it really complements the eclectic nature of this band, is that everybody can go fly on some shit and bring some really unique, amazing art to the table. But we got a lot of great stuff out of Jimmy before he passed on Nightmare. So it gave him the confidence. Afterlife really gave him the confidence to write in a style that he thought he couldn't write, which to me, it's styleless. Avenged is whatever the fuck you want it to be. And Jimmy definitely, with those two records, made shit his.
The thing that I wanted to close out this music theory part of the show with is that I was lucky enough to talk to the one and only Evil Joe Barresi, who is, of course, the producer for Life is But a Dream. And he remarked upon how much you love going to the studio and creating as a band. And one of those things that binds all of the records in Avenged Sevenfold's back catalogue, no matter how different they are stylistically, is that everyone shows up. Nobody is sending their parts across in a Dropbox. So even being a very technologically minded band, like both creatively, especially on the new record, and with how you present your band, there aren't many bands that are more technologically minded than Avenged Sevenfold, and yet everyone wants to be there in the flesh and be part of the creation of the magic that goes into Avenged Sevenfold songs. Do you think that was one of the things that made this song what it was? Because just a few friends fucking around drunk and in a cabin in Big Bear, and then blam, before you know it, 30,000 people are singing that part of that verse back at you because it's now part of a generation-defining rock song.
Yeah. No, it's a great point, and I don't think we've really spoken about this. It's a really, really great point. When I say that I wrote a song, or Jimmy wrote a song, or Matt, or Zachy, or Brooks, or Johnny, what the unspoken truth about it is that everybody is there contributing so much to those songs, whether it's structure, whether it's production, orchestration. So yeah, to have that unquantifiable camaraderie and firepower in the studio is fucking next level. I just doubt that there's another band with that, and that's what makes us so lucky. And that's why we can keep going because nobody lets anybody get old at this point, at least. We have to keep things fresh and interesting. We are very, very highly allergic to sounding like anything else at this point. And to sound, and we're highly allergic to sounding artificial. If it's not a natural song, natural orchestration, natural filter that it all goes through, that's making, all of our hair on the back of our neck stand up, then we're not letting it into the fucking universe. It's just not going to happen. And that type of a filter, those types of checks and balances are super, super unique. And I don't take that for granted in the slightest. It's our superpower.
And that's it for another episode of TRAX. Thanks for being with us. Do go back and check out the older episodes for all of the inside stories on the songs that you love directly from the band themselves. You can't find these stories anywhere else. Of course, new US tour dates are out now with Poppy and Sullivan King joining us on that tour. Death Bats Club holders have already had the easiest experience possible getting tickets. We hope that you can join us too. Subscribe to the show, give this a thumbs up if you're watching on YouTube, and we'll see you next time for another episode of TRAX.